First, like to introduce Craig Willis, who I've been working with on the National Data Service and other projects now for a bit, and he's going to be talking about what the NDS Labs Workbench is and how it can be used for many different efforts that are going on in sort of the data world around data research. So, Greg, you want to kick it off?
Sure, thanks, Niall. So, Craig Willis, I'm a senior research programmer at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications at University of Illinois, and also the technical coordinator for the National Data Service Project. I work closely with Christine Kirkpatrick, who's our executive director. I'm sure you all know that. And I don't have time to talk about NDS. If there's any questions, feel free. If you don't already know everything, I'll just talk specifically about one initiative, which is this, the Labs Workbench platform. And let's get my cursor in the right place here. So the NDS Labs Workbench really is one of the early products of the NDS consortium that began in 2016. It's a scalable web-based platform to support turnkey deployment of containerized software, primarily focused on research data analysis and education environments. It's something that can be installed. I'll give an architecture diagram towards the end of the presentation, but it is really based on kind of the Kubernetes orchestration framework that we deploy on OpenStack environments, predominantly Jetstream, SDSC, and NCSA's Nebula, that we can host, or you can install it for yourselves in those environments. So over the last couple of years, there have been kind of three primary applications of the Workbench. And in fact, the first one is the earliest one is the third one on this list here. So the one that garners the most interest is remote collaboration on complex data projects. I'll go into a use case here in a minute. We see a lot of use for workshops, training environments, and hackathons where people need kind of quick cloud-based access to pre-configured environments and maybe access to large data sets. You don't want to wait for participants to get stuff set up. And then sharing and discovery of containerized tools. And so the interface here in this display shows, this is the TERRA-REF environment I'll go into in detail, but we've got 6 applications in a catalog that are highly customized with software for the TERRA-REF project. In this case, we're looking at RStudio and Jupyter environments, but also some Expert-based environments for desktop applications, a Postgres interface, etc. So this first use case, complex collaboration on complex data projects, you get a shared platform, you've got remote interactive access to data, you've got all of the software dependencies can be pre-installed for folks, and you're dealing often in these projects with various levels of expertise. So users that may or may not be comfortable installing software or comfortable with the data transfer process, or particularly for large data sets. So the idea is that this allows a very rapid deployment of customized interfaces for them to do exploratory work or collaborative work on these data sets. So our primary use case right now is the ARPA-E, which is a research branch of the DOE's TERRA-REF project, which is building a reference data set for sorghum, high throughput phenotyping for sorghum growing in multiple sites. So we've got petascale data storage and computing pipeline, multi-institutional collaboration, and Labs Workbench has become kind of the primary interface for remote interactive access to the data by collaborators and developers on the project. So both researchers, postdocs, students, and then the actual professional research development team here at NCSA and in the partner institutions. So the illustration here is that the Workbench itself provides these kind of containerized environments. These are all web-based applications, Python IDE, RStudio, Postgres interface, the Jupyter environments. And you're accessing all of the data products for the TERRA project, which include active databases and MongoDB and PostGIS through the Clouder system developed here at NCSA, and then a massive amount of data on a GPFS file system on the NCSA storage condo. So this is really exploratory analysis. Users don't need to transfer data via Globus. They have access to do kind of ad hoc analysis. Second use case, workshops, training environments, and hackathons. So this was actually very early on. People realized this was a good application of the system. You've got pre-configured software environments. It's in a highly scalable system. The data and software is kind of preloaded for participants. They can be productive immediately without installing software, and it's effective on tablets as well as PCs. And then it kind of reduces the load on hotel Wi-Fi or conference Wi-Fi. So we supported a number of different initiatives, the NSF PI4 Bootcamp, which is an initiative here at the University of Illinois for industry training for mathematics students, teaching them data science, the Think Chicago Civic Tech Challenge over the summer. We host an ongoing asynchronous tutorial environment for the NSF-funded Einstein Tools Kit group, and have done a number of workshops related to the TERRA-REF project, including Phenome last year. And in a totally different space, the University of Washington uses this to launch DSpace, CCAN, and Dataverse environments to train iSchool students in kind of the data curation process. So one example here, this is a recent case, the USDA and IFA data-driven agriculture workshop and hackathon. So we had 3 terabytes of sample data we wanted to provide access to. This was in conjunction with the TERRA-REF project. Some of it loaded via GeoServer, which is hosted in that same Kubernetes cluster. We have the interactive analysis environments, the data preloaded to allow folks to access it. And then they were using desktop tools like QGIS to access the data via GeoServer, WMS and WCS services. I think there were about 50 participants signed up for that hackathon over a couple of days. The final use case, which was the original vision of the Workbench system, was really for communities like within the National Data Service community, specifically groups developing in the data infrastructure building blocks, NSF projects, to publish their tools so others could quickly spin them up, evaluate them, extend them as needed. So a rapid way for us all to kind of share cyber, I guess I called it cyber infrastructure for cyber infrastructure developers. As a way for us to share the tools that we're working on. And so the example screenshot here is for the EarthCube project. And there are a few examples: Chords, GeoDeep Dive, the OBSPI, Ontosoft, and Suave are all building blocks that came out of that initiative. So we kind of helped to containerize those and make it so that you could turn those on fairly rapidly if you're in that community. Just high-level architecture. We typically most everything we do right now is on the OpenStack environments, either through Jetstream or the 2 other systems I described. We deploy a Kubernetes substrate on that for container orchestration, and then we've got just the basic services that we use to support the system, but it scales out pretty wide to support particularly the hackathon and education environment scenarios. And so kind of with what we've learned from this process is that once you've packaged software in this way that enables rapid deployment in these kind of scalable infrastructures, you can enable education and training on the same research environments where you're actually doing research and access to that data. So that's been a very compelling story for the different groups who've used this system. And then we use it internally, obviously, even for our own development on some of these projects, which is also useful. I'm not sure where I was on time there. I think I'm okay. It was a bit of a blitz.
Do you have time for questions?
Absolutely. I mean, I assume.
Yes, you do.
Excellent. Thanks, Craig. That was great. Just curious about a couple of things. This is Jim Wilgenbush from University of Minnesota Supercomputing Institute. One of the bullet points, it was works on laptops, tablets, and hotel Wi-Fi. You don't mean that the platform is actually installed on tablets, right?
No. I mean, basically, these are all web-based applications. So that's
right. Okay. Right.
It on your laptop.
And so why hotel Wi-Fi's? I mean, it's just the bandwidth requirements because you're not actually moving data around. Is that the?
Yeah, and that's maybe that's kind of a poorly written bullet point there, but yeah. So instead of, if you can imagine, you're doing a workshop at a conference and you're requiring participants to download and install software, I think we've all experienced that.
Gotcha.
The burden of hotel Wi-Fi becomes actually an issue.
Yep.
So since all of the software is available in these kind of cloud-based environments, then you're minimal footprint there. So yeah, that's kind of a very poorly written bullet point. So.
No, I get it. I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking. I just wanted to be sure I was getting that. Another bullet that you had in a subsequent slide was web-based turnkey. So it's turnkey in the sense that you just, open up your browser and point at a URL. Is that the idea?
Yeah, and I didn't know if we'd have time for a demo here, but in short, you basically click start on one of these environments. Since these containerized environments boot up pretty quickly,
Yep.
You've got immediate access to kind of your private sandbox. So everybody gets their own copy of the thing that's running for things like Jupyter and RStudio with Jupyter Hub and RStudio Cloud. That's not very novel, but for some of these other tools, it may be. You're looking like one of the early applications from DFCNet project, actually between this was John Crabtree at Odom and I think the group at Renzi to combine Dataverse with iRods. John wanted to immediately run a workshop where he could give everybody their own Dataverse instance with an iRods backend that they could boot up at a conference in a 3-hour workshop. So that's a little more novel, I think.
Yeah. And one other question, or maybe just two and a point. So the Jupyter now is supporting a lot of these environments, desktops, as well as things like RStudio. Are you actually letting Jupyter handle the credentials and then the graphics delivery as well, or is that actually happening outside of Jupyter?
You'll have to give me a little more. So there's some finer points there. Jupyter Hub versus Jupyter itself.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you actually run a Jupyter notebook, and you have that Jupyter notebook, but then RStudio sort of stands in terms of your schematic beside that. What I'm saying is that if you open up a Jupyter notebook, you can actually then select from within your Jupyter notebook access to RStudio and pass through the various tokens for RStudio then to run through that Jupyter session.
So I've seen RStudio as a recent addition through the Jupyter Hub proxy. I know. So Jupyter this was developed independent of the Jupyter Hub framework. So
Gotcha.
We're not actually working. That's something that actually we've got. If a proposal gets funded, we're hoping to do better hook up to their fast moving ship there for the stuff that they do so well. These basically run independent of Jupyter Hub, but we run the same internal environments. You can run kernels. I actually personally haven't seen RStudio as the RStudio server run through Jupyter. I
can demo that for you at some point.
No. I know I've heard about being able to use it through the proxy, but I didn't know Jupyter itself was allowing you to run RStudio.
Just curious, does that allow you to then run Shiny inside of a notebook?
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
And so we've been using. I mean, maybe at some point I was early on this group, but should give a lightning at some point on the platform that we're developing. And I believe we had someone from your team come up in the fall from NDS, and we have something called Gems now, and it's similarly container based, a little bit more portable in the sense that we're actually doing installs on individual desktops as well as a web-based service, but most of it sort of relies on the Jupyter framework to provide other services, including a full desktop environment as well.
Okay. Well,
it just sort of simplifies things a bit from the standpoint, again, of the portability element, as well as authentication and what have you.
Spell Gems.
GEMS, and it's the name came from the emphasis in the ag space, where the G is genomic, the E is environment, the M is management, and the S is socioeconomic. So it's a reference to these 4 data types that are often people often attempt to bring these into some form of interoperability to make larger inferences about sort of the ag value chain.
Okay. Well, I will not monopolize the time here, but that's great. That's something, a great pointer for us to look at then.
All right, very cool. Well, thanks, Craig. Things are progressing there, I know, and I'm hoping, well, been around NDS a while, and I'm hoping things continue well. So here's to more funding. So.